Ever feel like history's playing favorites?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We spend years, learning about Henry VIII and all his wives.
Right, right.
But what about all the women who orchestrated things from the sidelines?
Mm-hmm.
The ones whose names don't exactly, light up the history books,
Yeah.
but their influence just rippled through the Tudor court.
It's like you're admiring a tapestry,
Mm-hmm.
but you only ever look at the boldest threads.
Yeah.
You miss all the intricate details,
Yeah,
the subtle shifts in color, the stories woven into every single inch.
exactly. And that's what we're doing today, diving deep into the lives of 3 Tudor women
Ooh, okay.
who deserve their moment in the spotlight:
All right.
Anne Seymour, Jane Dudley, and Elizabeth Parr.
Okay.
They weren't just wives or daughters.
Right.
These women were power players, strategists, confidants, shaping Tudor England
Yeah.
in ways you might not expect.
And what's so fascinating is that their influence was often veiled,
Right.
operating behind the scenes to advance their families, champion their beliefs. It really challenges that traditional image of women in this era.
Yeah, our guide for this deep dive is historian Sylvia Barbara Soberton,
Okay.
author of The Forgotten Tudor Women.
Right.
We're pulling from her insightful interview on the Not Just the Tudors podcast.
Okay.
She's like a historical detective, unearthing clues and piecing together a fuller picture
Yeah.
of Tudor life.
Soberton's work is crucial because she doesn't just rehash those familiar stories.
Right.
She dives into the archives,
Hmm.
uncovering letters, diaries, accounts that reveal the nuances of these women's lives.
Yeah.
She helps us understand their motivations, their ambitions, and the obstacles they faced.
Okay, so before we get into the juicy details,
Okay.
let's quickly set the scene.
Right.
We're talking about the Tudor dynasty,
Yes.
a period synonymous with drama and intrigue.
Oh, yeah.
Think Shakespearean levels of power struggles, religious upheaval, shifting alliances.
And it's important to remember that during this era, women's lives
Mm-hmm.
were largely defined by their relationships to men. Yeah.
They're expected to be wives, mothers,
Right?
obedient daughters.
Yeah.
Yet these 3 women, they challenge those expectations
Yeah.
in subtle but significant ways.
Let's start with Anne Seymour.
Okay.
Her husband, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset,
Mm-hmm.
became Lord Protector of England during the young King Edward VI's reign.
Right.
Talk about a power couple.
Anne wasn't just standing in her husband's shadow.
Right.
She was a force to be reckoned with in her own right.
Yeah.
But her story starts even before Edward's rise.
Okay.
Anne's family, the Stanhopes,
Mm-hmm.
they were savvy political operators.
Okay.
They shrewdly supported Anne Boleyn, ensuring their place at court,
Right.
setting the stage for their own advancement.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Anne was instrumental in her sister-in-law, Jane Seymour,
Right.
becoming Henry VIII's third wife.
It's a move that speaks volumes about her understanding of courtly politics.
Right.
We can only speculate about her motivations.
But clearly she knew how to play the game, and her influence only grew when her husband became Lord Protector.
Yeah.
She was essentially a queen in all but name.
Oh, I can imagine the whispers.
Oh, absolutely. The Spanish Chronicle, a primary source from the time,
Mm-hmm.
although not always the most reliable,
Okay.
describes her as someone who enjoyed pointing out other people's flaws.
Wow.
She wasn't afraid to assert her authority.
She sounds like someone you wouldn't want to cross.
Yeah.
But she wasn't just concerned with courtly power plays, right?
Right.
This was the time of the Reformation,
Yes.
a period of intense religious change in England.
And Anne was deeply involved.
Okay.
She corresponded with John Calvin, a prominent figure in the Protestant Reformation,
Mm-hmm.
and reformers with Calvinist leanings held positions in her household.
Wow.
It's safe to say she was a driving force behind the religious shifts
Yeah.
happening in England.
It's amazing to think about a woman at the heart of religious reform during such a tumultuous time.
Absolutely. But this involvement wasn't without its challenges.
Oh, okay.
Anne famously clashed with Catherine Parr,
Mm-hmm.
Henry VIII's sixth wife, over a matter of precedence,
Okay.
essentially who ranked higher at court.
Oh, I can only imagine the tension in that room.
Yeah.
2 powerful women,
Right.
each married to influential men,
Mhm.
vying for position.
It makes you wonder how much of it was personal rivalry
Right.
and how much was political strategy.
It's a perfect example of how intertwined personal ambition
Yeah,
and political maneuvering were in the Tudor court.
absolutely.
And these power dynamics had real consequences.
Right.
When Edward Seymour was accused of treason
Mm-hmm.
and imprisoned in the Tower of London,
Yeah.
Anne used all her influence to try and save him.
She even orchestrated a marriage between her daughter and John Dudley's son.
And wasn't John Dudley the one who brought down Edward Seymour in the first place?
Exactly. Talk about a strategic maneuver.
Wow.
It highlights how quickly alliances could shift in Tudor England. Sadly, even this bold move wasn't enough to save her husband from execution.
It's a stark reminder of how precarious power could be, even for those seemingly at the top.
Yeah.
And it sets the stage for our next fascinating figure, Jane Dudley.
Jane's husband, John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, rose to power after Somerset's fall.
Okay.
He became Lord President of the Council, and just like Anne, Jane found herself navigating the complexities of Tudor politics.
But Jane took a very different approach to wielding influence, didn't she?
She was much more subtle.
Okay.
While Anne was a visible presence at court,
Right.
Jane was known for her quieter influence. She was described as never bold amongst the women, suggesting a preference for working behind the scenes.
But don't let that fool you.
No.
She was just as dedicated to her family's advancement and the causes she believed in. Yeah. Jane was a staunch supporter of the Protestant Reformation.
Yes.
And had even been connected to the religious reformer Anne Askew.
And her influence is perhaps most evident in the rise of her son Guilford Dudley, who married Lady Jane Grey. The Dudley family was instrumental in the attempt to place Jane Grey on the throne after Edward VI's death.
Ah, yes, the tragic story of Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen.
Yeah.
Her story is a reminder of how quickly fortunes could change in Tudor England.
And just like Anne Seymour, Jane Dudley found herself caught in the crosshairs of political intrigue.
Okay.
She was imprisoned in the Tower facing the execution of her husband and sons.
Oh, wow.
For treason against Mary.
It's almost Shakespearean in its drama.
Yeah.
Did Jane Dudley share her husband's fate?
No, actually, unlike Anne, Jane was eventually released from the Tower.
Wow.
And even worked to rebuild her family's fortunes after the executions.
Oh, wow.
She was a true survivor in the face of tremendous adversity.
Her resilience is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
And speaking of defying expectations, let's move on to our third fascinating figure.
Okay.
Elizabeth Parr.
Oh, Elizabeth Parr.
Her life was a whirlwind of scandal and intrigue, even by Tudor standards.
She was a maid of honor to Catherine Howard. And there are even whispers that she caught the eye of Henry VIII himself.
Now, that's a story I want to hear more about.
We'll dive into all the details after a quick break.
Okay.
Stay with us.
Okay. You've piqued my curiosity. What kind of scandal are we talking about with Elizabeth Parr?
Right.
It sounds like she moved in some pretty interesting circles.
She did. And her romantic life was definitely more complicated than your average Tudor ladies.
Okay.
She ended up marrying William Parr, the brother of Catherine Parr, Henry VIII's sixth wife. But there was a rather big snag.
Okay.
William was already married.
He just married someone else while still married.
Yeah.
How was that even possible in Tudor England?
I know.
Weren't they strict about those sorts of things?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But William's situation was messy, to say the least.
Okay.
His first wife, Anne Bouchier, had eloped with another man and had children with him.
So I guess William wanted out of the marriage.
Right.
But divorce wasn't exactly a walk in the park back then, was it?
Definitely not. It was a drawn-out legal process.
Yeah.
And even after England became Protestant, divorce based on adultery, which was common practice in some other Protestant countries, wasn't recognized.
So he was stuck.
Basically, yeah.
He couldn't just ignore the situation.
Right.
What did William do?
Well, he did something quite bold, even for a Tudor nobleman.
Okay.
While still technically married to Anne, he went ahead and married Elizabeth Brooke.
Oh, wow.
As you can imagine, this caused quite a scandal.
Yeah.
The Lord Protector at the time, Edward Seymour, remember Anne Seymour's husband?
Yeah, right.
Actually ordered them to separate.
So Elizabeth was caught in the middle of this legal tug of war.
Yes.
That's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. She even spent some time living with Catherine Parr, which probably gave her a unique perspective on courtly life. But then things took an even more dramatic turn.
Oh, okay.
When Edward Seymour fell from power, William saw his opportunity.
To finally make his marriage to Elizabeth official.
Exactly. He managed to pull some strings.
Okay.
And get a private act of parliament passed in 1552.
Wow.
This act annulled his first marriage and declared his marriage to Elizabeth valid.
Wow.
It was the only parliamentary divorce in Tudor England.
Talk about knowing how to work the system.
Right.
But If I know my Tudor history, fortune had a way of turning on a dime.
Oh, yeah.
Did William manage to stay in the good graces of the ever-changing monarchy?
Not quite. He made the mistake of siding with John Dudley. And when Mary I came to the throne, he was imprisoned in the Tower of London.
Oh, no. Poor Elizabeth.
I know.
She must have been devastated.
It was a very precarious situation.
Yeah.
Her position was uncertain because William's first wife was still alive.
Right.
Some people recognized her as the Marchioness of Northampton, while others refused to acknowledge her title.
So much drama.
Yeah.
It's like a real-life soap opera, but with even higher stakes.
Right.
Things must have looked up when Elizabeth III became queen.
Oh, definitely.
They were close, weren't they?
They were indeed when Elizabeth the Hort took the throne. It was a huge relief for both William and Elizabeth Parr.
Okay.
They were finally recognized as a married couple, although not officially.
Right.
Their friendship had deepened during Mary Stuart's reign.
Okay.
When Elizabeth Parr had warned Elizabeth III about a plot to marry her off to a foreign duke.
That's true loyalty, putting yourself at risk to protect a friend.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes about her character.
And Elizabeth the Guy clearly valued that loyalty.
Right.
She showed a lot of favor towards Elizabeth Parr, even making a stop at William Parr's house on the way to her coronation procession.
A royal pit stop.
Right.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It sounds like Elizabeth Parr had the Queen's ear.
Yeah.
What do we know about her influence at court?
Ambassadors at the time noted Elizabeth Parr's close relationship with the Queen, suggesting that she had a significant, albeit subtle, influence. She was involved in the delicate marriage game that Elizabeth I played with foreign ambassadors.
Okay.
One ambassador even remarked, "If she doesn't know the truth,
wow,
then I don't know the truth either."
That's high praise.
Right.
She must have been incredibly trusted to be privy to such sensitive matters.
Yeah.
It seems like she had a quieter, but no less impactful role than Anne Seymour.
She did, and Elizabeth I showed her own loyalty.
Okay.
When Elizabeth Parr fell ill with breast cancer, the Queen arranged for her to travel to the Netherlands for treatment.
Wow.
Even writing to the Regent, Margaret of Parma, to request safe passage for her cousin.
That's a heartwarming story amidst all the political maneuvering and scheming.
Yeah.
It's nice to see genuine care and concern.
Yeah.
It shows that real friendships could exist even in the pressure cooker of the Tudor court.
Sadly, Elizabeth Parr's illness was too advanced, and she died in 1565.
Oh, wow.
At the young age of 38.
What a loss. I wonder how Elizabeth I reacted to the news.
We don't have records of her immediate reaction.
Okay.
But there's a telling incident a few years later.
Okay.
William Parr, along with other counselors, urged Elizabeth I to marry.
Oh, I bet that didn't go over well.
No.
Elizabeth I was notoriously resistant to marriage.
She was. And she reportedly snapped at William.
Wow.
Telling him to worry about his own marital misadventures instead of lecturing her about marriage.
That's a subtle but sharp rebuke.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if she held a bit of resentment towards William for moving on so quickly.
Right.
It shows how deeply she valued Elizabeth Parr's memory.
It really does. William did eventually marry a third time.
Okay.
But it's clear that Elizabeth Parr held a special place in both his and Elizabeth I's lives.
So we've met three remarkable women: Anne Seymour, Jane Dudley, and Elizabeth Parr.
Right.
They were ambitious, influential, and ultimately tragic figures who navigated the treacherous waters of Tudor politics.
And their stories challenge us to rethink how we view ambition, especially when it comes to women in history. The word ambition is often used negatively to describe women.
Right.
But these women show us that ambition can be a powerful force for good.
You're right. They used their influence to help others, to support causes they believed in, and to protect their families.
Yes.
They were far more than just wives or daughters.
Exactly. They were active agents in shaping their own destinies.
Yeah.
And the course of history, despite the limitations placed on them, their stories remind us to look beyond the traditional narratives.
Right.
And to recognize the complexity of the past.
It makes you wonder how many other forgotten women are out there.
Yeah.
Waiting for their stories to be told.
That's the beauty of historical research. There's always more to discover.
Yeah.
More voices to hear and more nuances to uncover.
And thanks to historians like Sylvia or Barbara Soberton, we're starting to get a much richer and more complete picture of the past. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if history had given these women a chance to shine even brighter?
Yeah.
What if they'd been born into a different time or circumstance?
Imagine if Anne Seymour had been able to fully leverage her influence during Edward VI's reign.
Yeah.
or if Jane Dudley had successfully placed her family on the throne.
And can you picture Elizabeth Parr as queen?
Oh, wow.
Her intelligence, her loyalty, her understanding of the court?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to consider how the Tudor era, and even England itself,
Right.
might have unfolded differently.
It's a powerful reminder that the history we learn is often just a sliver of the full story.
Yeah.
We focus on the monarchs, the battles, the big events.
Right.
But sometimes it's the figures operating behind the scenes who truly shape the course of events.
These women's stories encourage us to look beyond the familiar narratives, to question our assumptions, and to appreciate the complexity of the past.
Right.
Which aspects of their lives resonated most with you?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Was it their strategic maneuvering,
Yeah.
their fierce loyalty, or their ambition in a world that tried to limit them?
For me, it's their resilience that truly stands out.
Yeah.
They faced such immense challenges. Imprisonment, the execution of loved ones, constant political upheaval.
Right.
And yet they persevered.
Wow.
They adapted to an ever-changing landscape and fought for their beliefs and their families.
It's inspiring to see how they never gave up, even when the odds were stacked against them.
Yeah.
Their stories prove that women have always been forces to be reckoned with,
Right.
even when their voices were silenced or their contributions overlooked.
And that's a lesson worth remembering, both when we look back on history and when we navigate the complexities of our own lives.
If you're as fascinated by these forgotten women of the Tudor era as we are, I highly recommend checking out Sylvia Barbara Soberton's book, The Forgotten Tudor Women. It's a captivating read that will change how you view Tudor England and introduce you to a cast of characters you won't soon forget.
It's a must-read for anyone interested in Tudor history.
Yeah.
Soberton does a fantastic job of breathing life into these women's stories.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive so you don't miss our future explorations of the hidden figures and forgotten stories that shape our understanding of the past.
It's remarkable to think about how much these women achieved. It makes you wonder, what if just one of them had been queen? How would history have unfolded differently?
Wow.
That's something to ponder as we continue to uncover the untold stories that make history so compelling.